You're crouched in a tunnel 20 feet underground, pitch black except for your flickering candle. The air is thick with dirt and the smell of your own fear. Then you hear it, digging, coming from the other side of the wall. The enemy is tunneling toward you, meters away, maybe seconds from breaking through. Your rifle is useless in this cramped space, too long to swing around, impossible to aim. The barrel keeps scraping the tunnel walls. You need firepower, and you need it fast. So you pull out your hacksaw and start cutting. This is how desperate soldiers in World War I created some of the most brutal, improvised weapons in military history. Necessity is the mother of invention, especially when invention determines whether you live or die. Soldiers in the First World War were issued bolt-action rifles, fantastic for long-range shooting, but catastrophically bad in trenches, tunnels, or any close-quarters combat. The rifles were simply too long, too unwieldy, too designed for battlefields that no longer existed. So, troops took matters into their own hands. Literally. With hacksaws, files, and desperation, they modified their weapons into something the High Command never authorized, but battlefield reality absolutely required. If one nation mastered improvised weapons, it was Russia. The Eastern Front didn't have Western Europe's endless trench systems, but Russians found different reasons to cut weapons down: partisans, hiding from authorities, revolutionaries preparing for uprising, bandits operating in lawless territories, peasants protecting themselves during Civil War chaos. All needed firearms that could be hidden under floorboards, inside chimneys, or concealed under long coats. The solution was brutal and brilliant. Take your standard issue rifle and cut it down until it disappeared. These weapons had a name: Obrez, Russian for cutback, and they were absolutely terrifying. The main Russian rifle was the Mosin Nagant, reliable, popular, but absurdly long. With pistols nearly impossible to acquire, Russians repurposed Mosin Nagants into Obrez guns that had no standard shape or size. Their form depended entirely on what the creator needed or could manage, without destroying the weapon completely. Some modifications were simple, cutting the barrel down to carbine length. Others were extreme, reducing the rifle to essentially a bolt-action pistol. But here's the terrifying part. Even shortened, Obrez guns still fired the powerful 7.62 by 54mm cartridge designed for full-length rifles. The recoil was absolutely immense, like catching a sledgehammer with your hands. The Obrez lacked front sights because those got cut away with the barrel, making accuracy beyond a few paces pure wishful thinking. You pointed in the general direction of your target and hoped, but in close quarters, during civil wars and independence movements gripping the Russian Empire and early Soviet Union, hope was enough. These weapons were easily hidden, quickly deployed, and delivered devastating power at close range. Perfect for assassinations, ambushes, self-defense situations where concealment mattered more than accuracy. Though Mosin Nagants were most common, Russians cut down whatever they could find. German Mausers captured during World War I, Japanese Arasakas from earlier conflicts. Any rifle that fell into partisan hands could become an Obrez. The practice became so widespread, it gained mythical status, continuing through the Spanish Civil War, World War II, and beyond. Even today, firearms enthusiasts collect Obrez guns as historical artifacts of desperate times requiring desperate measures. But Russia wasn't alone in discovering that shorter meant deadlier in modern warfare's brutal close-quarters reality. On the Western Front, trench warfare created different problems requiring similar solutions. Standard rifles were too long for trench systems where enemies fought meters apart in narrow spaces. Soldiers used pistols when available, but pistols were scarce. So they improvised, removed bayonets and used them as knives, wielded entrenching tools as axes, created medieval-style weapons that wouldn't look out of place at Agincourt. Clubs made from furniture, legs studded with nails or wrapped in barbed wire, brass knuckles with attached knife blades, maces, Even billhooks appeared on otherwise modern battlefields. Some soldiers wore improvised metal armor against these weapons, looking more like knights than 20th century infantrymen. But melee weapons had limits. Soldiers wanted robust firepower without waiting for high command to issue proper equipment. So they took the firearms they already had and made unauthorized modifications using nothing but hacksaws and determination. These weren't professional gunsmith jobs. These were desperate soldiers cutting down rifles in muddy trenches between artillery barrages, hoping the modifications wouldn't explode in their faces when fired. The worst fighting happened underground. To break the perpetual stalemate, both sides dug tunnels under no man's land beneath enemy trenches, filled tunnel ends with explosives, then detonated them, destroying defenses from below. But diggers could encounter enemy diggers underground, leading to vicious subterranean battles. Rifles were completely useless in these cramped spaces. Soldiers used pistols, entrenching tools, knives, anything that worked in tight confines. And on at least one documented occasion, a rifle was used, but not in any way consistent with regulations. Evidence suggests Canadian sappers near Vimy used at least one British SMLE rifle cut down to a fraction of its original length. The barrel was reduced to only a few inches past the receiver, making the entire weapon little over 2 feet long. The bayonet mount was gone. The front sight was gone, cut away with the barrel. Accuracy and range were probably terrible. But in tunnel fighting, where enemies appeared suddenly meters away in flickering candlelight, accuracy didn't matter. Speed mattered. Firepower mattered. Bringing more force to bear faster than the enemy meant living another day. Fights in tunnels were vicious but brief. The side that could deliver more violence quicker won. Period. A cut-down rifle gave crucial edge in initial firepower, potentially meaning the difference between survival and death. Of course, modifying rifles like this violated every regulation imaginable, but rules meant nothing to soldiers determined to survive. Most likely, the SMLE used had already been damaged beyond repair or lost its sights anyway, and what headquarters didn't know wouldn't hurt them. Unauthorized weapons modifications happened across all armies because battlefield reality trumped peacetime regulations every single time. Germans developed their own cut-down weapons. The Maxim 0818 is one of history's most mysterious firearms. An improvised submachine gun, essentially a no-frills cut-down version of the MG08 machine gun. Beyond that, information is scarce. It apparently fed from multi-row unblocked clips and fired 9mm parabellum cartridges despite being based on the larger caliber MG08. From limited available pictures, the improvised nature is undeniable. Simple wooden stock. 2 pistol grips mounted on the receiver. Short barrel. Nothing fancy. Pure functionality. Details about the Maxim 0818 remain unknown. Rate of fire? Unknown. Number produced? Unknown. Effective range? Unknown. Accuracy? Unknown. Reliability? Unknown. Whether they saw actual combat? Unknown. Even the name is speculation. Firearms experts call it Maxim 0818 or SMG 0818 because they lack better labels. But its existence proves the priority placed on cut-down improvised weapons during World War I. If Germans were willing to butcher expensive machine guns into improvised submachine guns, the need was desperate and widespread. Americans wasted no time learning these lessons. While no reports exist of shortened Springfield M1903 rifles, doughboys modified other guns for trench warfare. Shotguns already successfully used in the Philippines were utilized devastatingly against Germans. Capable of firing impressive buckshot spreads at close quarters, these trench guns were already shorter than standard rifles, but soldiers modified them further by sawing barrels down to even more compact sizes. These weapons were brutally effective. So effective that Germans officially protested their use, threatening reprisals against American forces employing shotguns. The Americans mostly ignored these threats and continued using trench sweepers until war's end. The shotgun controversy reveals something important. When weapons become too effective, too brutal, too devastating in close combat, even enemies hardened by years of mechanized slaughter start complaining. That's how terrifying cut-down weapons were in the confined spaces where modern warfare actually happened. Not across no man's land, but in trenches, tunnels, and ruins, where soldiers fought face-to-face with improvised brutality. After World War I, the Obrez concept gained mythical status, used in Spanish Civil War, World War II, beyond, popular collector items today among firearms enthusiasts. Most Obrez guns are cut-down bolt-action rifles, though other types exist. Semi-automatic rifles, submachine guns, shotguns. Pretty much anything has been cut from original size for easier concealment or specific circumstances. The practice never truly died because the reasons for it never disappeared. People still need concealable weapons. Fighters still need compact firepower. Improvisation still beats waiting for proper equipment. Even today, unusual Obrez-style guns appear in conflict zones. Recently, in Iraq, someone found what can only be described as a Frankenstein gun, a Soviet PPS-41 submachine gun from World War II, heavily modified. The wooden stock was cut, so its curve became a pistol grip. The barrel was reduced to a hand's width from the receiver. More unusual, the weapon was rechambered to fire 9 by 19 mm parabellum and adapted to fit German MP-40 magazines. Different war, different ammunition, different magazines. Same desperate ingenuity. This Frankenstein PPS is small enough to fire one-handed, but like all Obrez-style guns, the recoil must be immense. Firing on full auto one-handed likely creates major health hazards for the shooter. Yet someone built it anyway because they needed compact automatic firepower more than they needed comfort or safety. It demonstrates that on battlefields, a little ingenuity and access to a hacksaw goes a long way. Rules don't matter. Regulations don't matter. Survival matters. And if survival requires cutting down your rifle with improvised tools, you cut down your rifle. What makes improvised cut-down weapons fascinating is what they reveal about warfare itself. Official military procurement moves slowly. Research takes years. Development takes years. Testing takes years. Production takes years. By the time new weapons reach troops, the war might be over, or battlefield conditions completely changed. Soldiers can't wait. They need solutions now. So they create solutions using whatever tools and materials are available. This pattern repeats throughout military history across all conflicts and all nations. The weapons themselves are often ugly, unreliable, dangerous to the user, but they work well enough for their specific purpose. An Obrez pistol can't hit anything beyond 10 meters, but it can be hidden and deployed faster than a full rifle. A cut-down SMLE can't engage targets at range, but in a tunnel fight, range is irrelevant. A modified shotgun violates international norms, but dead enemies don't file protests. Improvised weapons sacrifice everything except the one quality that matters most in their specific context, and that's why they keep appearing. Modern militaries still face this tension between official procurement and battlefield reality. Equipment designed in peacetime rarely fits wartime needs perfectly. Soldiers deployed to urban combat zones still modify weapons beyond regulations. Special operations forces still create custom firearms unauthorized by standard arsenals. The technology changes, but the principle remains constant. When lives depend on having the right tool for the job, soldiers will create that tool, regardless of whether headquarters approves. Necessity really is the mother of invention, especially when invention determines who lives and who dies. Subscribe, because we explore the improvised, unauthorized, and brutally practical side of military history that official accounts ignore. Comment which improvised weapon or modification you want covered next. Vietnam-era gun trucks? Homemade armor in modern conflicts? Garage-built armored vehicles? Improvised explosives throughout history? Let me know. From Russian Obrez pistols to Canadian sapper rifles to German Maxim conversions to American trench sweepers, soldiers have always modified weapons when official equipment fails to match battlefield reality. They cut down barrels, removed stocks, changed calibers, adapted magazines from different guns entirely. The results were often ugly, usually unreliable, sometimes dangerous to the user. But they worked well enough to keep appearing throughout conflicts spanning over a century. Because when survival depends on having compact firepower immediately, regulations become irrelevant suggestions rather than absolute rules. The lesson isn't that improvised weapons are superior to properly designed ones. They're not. The lesson is that battlefield needs evolve faster than procurement systems can respond. Soldiers face problems requiring immediate solutions using available resources. A hacksaw and determination can create a weapon that, while crude, delivers exactly what's needed in that specific moment. Whether it's a Russian partisan hiding a pistol-sized rifle, or a Canadian sapper fighting in tunnels, or an Iraqi fighter converting Soviet hardware to German magazines, the pattern remains identical. Adapt, improvise, survive. See you next time when we examine more unauthorized military innovation born from desperate necessity.